The kingdom of my divine will in the midst of creatures. Book of Heaven, Volume 31, Part 4. October 9th, 1932. God created man in an ecstasy of love. The creation, endowment of man. The sweet ringing of the bell. Mutual ecstasy of the Creator and of the creature. Prodigy of the conception of the Virgin. My abandonment in the Fiat continues, and the more I abandon myself, the more I feel its strength that strengthens me, its life that animates mine, its light that comforts me, brightens me up, and making itself revealer, reveals to me the one in whose arms I am all abandoned, and with powerful attraction makes me go around in his works, loves, and wants his little daughter to be spectator of what he has done for love of creatures. So while I was going around, my divine and sovereign Jesus, making me pause in the act of the creation of man, told me, "My daughter, what a sweet memory the creation of man. He was created in an ecstasy of love of ours. Our love was so great that we remained enraptured before our own work that we were issuing to the light. The beauty with which we had invested him enraptured us. The sanctity with which we had filled him enraptured us. The shape, the harmony with which we had formed him enraptured us. His prerogatives, each of his qualities, were an ecstasy of love that we felt, and that enraptured us to love him. So our love remained shaken, subdued, and putting us into ecstasy, it made the operating and everlasting love toward man arise within us. And in this ecstasy of love, enraptured as we were heedless of everything. We set no limits. We made such display in loving him and enriching him of all goods, that we left not a void in him, so that his love for us might be full, and he might be able to enrapture us to love him continuously. So the mere memory of how man was created repeats for us our loving ecstasy toward him. Now, one who goes around in our will, as she finds our works that were as though a preparation to then create man, rings the bell to call all creatures to recognize this love of God toward man. And its sweet sound calls our attention, reawakens our love, and makes our ecstasy of love arise again toward him. Ecstasy means a complete pouring out of oneself toward the beloved, and one who lives in our will has the power to make us undergo our ecstasy of love, that we may pour ourselves out into her, and we, with our power, place the creature in ecstasy for us, so that nothing may be left of her, and she may pour herself out completely into our Supreme Being. A reciprocal pouring out of oneself takes place, one into the other. Therefore there is nothing that pleases us more than to see the creature in that same will in which he was created. To admire our works, to know them, to feel the pulsations of our love that each created thing possesses. This was the endowment that we prepared and gave to man in creating so many things and all creation. Now, who receives the life of the good that created things contain? One who makes use of this endowment so splendid, and by right, one who knows them, by knowing them, finds our love palpitating, our will operating, and he loves them, and loves in them that Supreme Being that loves him. Therefore, be attentive and constant in going around in our works, so that we may hold hands in loving each other. We may put each other into ecstasy, and with profit you shall make use of the great endowment that with so much love your Creator gave you. After this, my little mind was wandering about in the acts done by the divine will, and going from one act to another, I arrived at the conception of the Most Holy Virgin. O God, the heavens remain mute before this act performed by the divine will. The angels seem to stammer, and as much as they speak, it seems that they are unable to tell everything about this prodigy so great. Ah, only God can speak about it, because He is the author of the prodigy of what He operated in this conception. And while I remained stupefied, my lovable Jesus, surprising me, told me, "My daughter, the conception of the Immaculate Virgin was a new act of our will, new in the manner, new in the time, new in grace. In her was the whole creation renewed. In our all-seeingness and immensity, we called all creatures, all of their good acts, present, past, and future, as if they were one alone, so that upon everyone and upon everything might this conception be formed, in order to give the right to all, and give them the right not with words, but with facts, over everything. When our will does an act that must serve for the universal good of all, it puts no one aside, and making use of its omnipotence, it gathers everything together, creatures and acts of theirs, except for sin, because evil does not enter our acts, and it performs the act it wants to do. See, your acts also contributed. You placed your part. Therefore, by right, you are her daughter, and the Virgin Queen is by right your mamma. But do you know why we used this way in issuing this holy creature to the light? To renew the whole creation, to love it with new love, and to place everyone and everything in safety, as though under the wings of this celestial creature and mother. We never do our works as isolated, but we always start from our one and only act. And while it is one, it unites everything, and does everything, as if all were one alone. This is our omnipotence, our creative strength, to do everything, to find everything, and do good to all in one single act. Fiat. October 16th, 1932. The divine will makes of all centuries one. It simplifies, it forms the void, and forms the divine nature and its journey in the human will. The divine volition keeps weaving its divine life in my soul. With its sweet enchantment, it makes it grow, it molds it, it nourishes it, and with its wings of light, it covers it, it hides it, so that not a breath of wind may harm it, or be able to prevent the growth of its life in my soul. Oh, if it wasn't for the divine will, that more than tender and loving mother holds me in its arms, covered with its light in the circumstances of my life, alas, too painful, I don't know what I would do. But its light calms me, fortifies me, and I move on. Oh, adorable will, how I must thank you for a good so great! And I offer you the infinity of your own volition to thank you as you deserve. So, while my mind felt itself under its light, my beloved Jesus, repeating his short little visit to my soul, told me, "My blessed daughter, how beautiful it is to see the creature grow under the wings of light of my will. Enveloped within this light, she sees, hears, touches nothing but her mother light that keeps her enfolded. And if creatures wound her, beat her, embitter her, she feels herself being drawn deeper inside and clasped by its arms of light. And she answers with the smile of light to those who want to embitter her and wound her, and making fun of them, she confounds their human perfidy. O power of my operating will! It slips away from everything, it triumphs over everything, and with its light it forms its throne of everlasting glory in the soul who gives it the freedom to operate. You must know that its power is so great that it makes of all centuries one, and its empire extends everywhere, and of all acts it makes one single act. The centuries disappear before its power, and all the good acts of creatures are nothing other than many atoms, which united together form one single act. And recognizing its power, prostrate at its feet, they form the glory, the adoration of the human generations to this supreme will. The symbol of this is the sun, which is nothing other than many atoms of light, which united together form the sun that gives light to all the earth. But those atoms are armed with a divine power, and each of them contains a marvelous power, so much so that by merely touching the earth, the plants, they communicate marvelous goods and effects as to form a distinct life in each plant and flower. The same with the acts of the creatures. Though they are atoms, they contain the marvelous power of my will. Therefore, they are pregnant with admirable effects. You must know that when the creature disposes herself to do an act in my will arms its power, and it simplifies, forms the void, and forms the divine nature in the human will. And as though victorious, it forms its path in the will of the creature. And it keeps journeying and journeying, and only then does it stop, and its step is hindered when the human volition bars its way by doing, not mine, but its own will. What a crime to hinder the journey, the step of my will, in the will of the creature. This is why I created the creatures, to form for myself many ways in the human wills, so as to be able to have my continuous journey, and therefore my operating act in them. And one who hinders my journey would want to hinder the continuation of my creation, hamper my steps, and tie my hands, so that I may not operate. Not doing my will seems to be something trivial, yet it is the greatest of crimes, which cries out for revenge on the poor creatures before the Divine Majesty, especially when my will is known, that it wants a work to be done, that it wants a sacrifice. Not doing it is like wanting to contest the truth, and this is sin against the Holy Spirit, and it cries out for revenge before God. To know my will and not do it is to close heaven, break the divine relations, and not recognize the divine lordship that each creature is obliged to know, and to submit to what my will wants, should it cost her her life. Therefore, be attentive, adore my will, and what I have disposed of you, if you want to content your Jesus. Fiat. October 21st, 1932. The creature, heaven studded with stars. The creation enclosed within her. How the practice of good forms the life of good in the creature. The sign that Jesus dwells in the soul. I am always prey to the divine fiat. It awaits me in all created things, to duplicate the love it had in creating so many things for me. It seems that the divine volition longs for the love of its beloved creature, to be able to find the little prop of love upon which to lean its great love. So heavens, suns, winds are nothing other than insinuating and continuous calls to tell us, I have anticipated you with my love, and you do not leave me without yours. But while I felt that all were calling me to love my Creator, my beloved Jesus, surprising me, told me, my daughter, just as I created a heaven that extends above your head, studded with stars, in the same way I created a heaven inside of you. And this heaven is your soul, which extends everywhere, from the top of your head down to the bottom of your feet. There is not one part of you to which this heaven does not extend. So you have a heaven on the outside, and a heaven inside, even more beautiful. And everything that this heaven does, by means of your nature, That is, if it thinks, if it speaks, if it operates, if it suffers, is nothing other than most refulgent stars, with which this heaven of the soul keeps adorning itself. The sun that shines in it is my will. The sea that flows is my grace. The wind, my sublime truths, that form the flowery fields of the most beautiful virtues. The whole of creation is enclosed in the creature. It was not of our wisdom, or of our powerful love, to create the creation only outside of the creature, leaving the inside, the vital and substantial part of her, without heavens, stars, and suns. No, no. When we do a work, we fill it inside and out with our works, and with our very life, but so much that there must be not one particle of its being that does not feel our life and the strength of our creative works. This is why we love the creature so much, because she is our work, and we left our life in her in order to preserve what we ourselves had done. And this is why, then, if one does not feel within himself the life of my divine will, it means that he knows it theoretically, but not in practice. Because when one knows a good and practices it, it has the virtue of forming the substance of the life of the good that one knows. Otherwise, it would remain without practice, like a painted picture, which, having no life, does not possess the virtue of forming its life in the one who admires it. My will is life. Our works are living works, not dead. Yet, for one who does not know them, or does not try to know them, or does not put them into practice, they can be dead works for her, and without life. Therefore, it is in the practice that I await the creature, in order to realize, form, and grow the life of my volition, and to render our works alive for her. After this, I was feeling a fear, a doubt, about whether my sweet Jesus was present in my soul, or had withdrawn, leaving me alone and abandoned. Alas, what a cruel thorn that pricks and makes one feel the most ruthless death! But my always lovable Jesus, surprising me, told me, "My daughter, do not fear." And in order to reassure you, I want to tell you the sign when I dwell inside, and when I depart. If the soul submits herself to my will, loves it, gives it the first place, this is the sign that I dwell within her, because my presence has the virtue of keeping the human will submitted to mine. On the other hand, if she feels rebellious to my will, this is the sure sign, then, that I have withdrawn. Therefore, calm yourself and do not fear. Fiat. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 31, Part 4. Fiat.